Yes, you heard that correctly. In 2025, I had my Amazon KDP account terminated, but it wasn't for the reasons you'd necessarily think nor expect. So you might be asking the question, exactly what did happen? What did I lose? And how do you prevent yourself from falling into the same exact trap my wife and I fell into? But just before I go into those specific details, let me first state that I've been writing fantasy books more professionally since 2020. I will also specify that this is, of course, before AI was first introduced, which meant every book I wrote wasn't simply generated, it was all old school and handwritten. In that time period, I released around 200 fantasy books, which totals well over 5 million words written to date. And yes, I do realize that's a lot given that typical fantasy authors only release a handful of books per year. So let's just say I have a very good imagination. At the time, I figured to myself that if I produced enough fantasy books on the platform, that I'd eventually get noticed, and so I focused all my attention on writing the stories and releasing them in set volumes with very little thought given to the actual titles of the books themselves. I assumed that a professional book platform would do all of the standard copyright and trademark checks, while I continued to focus more on the writing itself. I, of course, always did a quick search myself just to make sure I wasn't infringing on any other authors. This is where I first ran into problems when I released a book that was called Dungeon Regex, with a secondary line that was inside of actual quotation marks which said, Dungeoneering for Dummies. Now, as you can see, here is the full title. I also released an inner cover which had a cute female character stating in response to the quote on the cover that said, Hey, we're not dummies, we're heroes. Bleh. Now, let me first state that I had no intention of infringing on anyone at this point. I figured I had made a cute pun, which was to be taken as such and nothing more. I will also point out that my book cover had nothing to do with educational purposes, but of course a complaint was eventually made by a trademark holder, which apparently owned the rights to For Dummies. I immediately reacted by taking the book down, quickly apologizing, and telling both Amazon and the trademark holder that this was genuine human error and I wasn't intentionally trying to do anything wrong. But of course, neither side listened, and the full blame was placed upon my shoulders. This ended up with my entire account, thousands of hours of hard work, and all of my books being removed from the platform altogether in a single click. Account terminated. No compassion, no remorse, just a simple deletion of all my work. Now, let me just say, I was more than devastated, and every time I tried to appeal or even reach out to a higher up at the company, I was either completely ignored or turned away with nobody caring at all. I was essentially treated as nothing more than a number, out with the old and in with the new. So, what evidence do I have in my defense? Well, other than genuine human error, let me just say this. After my wife and I conducted our own independent search of the platform via the fantasy books section, we discovered something very interesting, and that is there are actual fantasy books which have existed for literal years now that contain those exact same two words, which are, of course, for dummies, and yet they're allowed to remain, to continue making sales with no consequences whatsoever, whilst I, alongside my wife, were singled out. Now I have to ask the question, why are all of them allowed to use those specific words while I am not? And yes, I pointed this fact out to them, even providing direct evidence, which was then summarily ignored and dismissed. So, in hindsight, it almost feels like someone is manipulating the pieces across the figurative chessboard behind the scenes, doesn't it? Ensuring that certain talented individuals succeed in life while others fail. Or maybe I'm just imagining things again. Regardless, peace out.